Hello everyone, and John Maher here. This is our weekly Grass10 grazing management update on the dairy edge. I suppose this week is really a story of surplus grass on most farms. The figures would tell us from pasture-based that the average cover per livestock unit is well over 200, average farm cover well over 700, growth beating demand by about 13 kilograms of growth per day, or about 100 a week, pre-grazing yields of well over 1,500. So with all that happening, then, we have a surplus grass situation on most farms. Not all, but most. When we look at the predicted growth for the week, then it makes this surplus, I suppose, come to the fore for many farms, as the predicted growth for most of the country is around 70 kilos. So the level of grass surplus will continue to grow, and as soil temperatures are well up too, and heat forecasted, this is going to make the situation, I suppose, into a good opportunity to remove surplus grass, as the weather is expected to be reasonably good. If the surplus grass is not dealt with or not removed, grass quality will be poorer, and therefore animal performance will be poorer for people on doing, cattle enterprises or beef enterprises or sheep enterprises. Animal performance will be lower. For cattle, that's about 0.15 a kilo per day on work done from grange. And if you look at the dairy farms, you're talking about, a drop in 5 or 10% in milk solids yield. When the proportion of leaf falls away by about, if you go from even say something like 75% leaf to 70% leaf, that's a drop in digestibility. And once we drop in digestibility, then animal performance will suffer. So the other side, when the swards are too stemmy or too strong or too high in cover, the swards get undergrazed, and then you face another problem in dealing with quality problems in July. So it's a case of having to try to deal with that and monitor the situation. If we move on then to where we are with dealing with this surplus grass on farm, this can be, I suppose, made into high quality silage. And this is the best approach. If we look back to the last number of years, while some farms have been short of silage, many farms have been short of quality silage with difficult weather conditions. So having a supply of high quality silage is going to be an asset to you in dealing with, difficult times ahead. Some people will argue about pre-cutting and continuous topping, but to us, that's just wasting feed. So this feed should be converted, into high-quality silage from our perspective. Equally, dealing with the surplus on many dairy farms, the level of meal feeding is too high. We know that from the figures on pasture-based this week, it's about 4 kilos. Most grazing situations have surplus on the farm. So, bringing down the meal feeding is one option of dealing with this. And going into the right grass will mean that the animals will perform well without having to have this additional meal. If we take our feature farmer this week, Denis Finnegan, he has an average farm cover of close to 600, growing grass quite well, going into 1,400, doing 2.1 kilograms of milk solids at about 4.6 fat, 3.8 protein on 2 kilos of meal. So, going into right grass just shows that we can still get high animal performance without having to worry about meal feeding or having to deal with stemmy pasture. So it's all about that decision making of dealing with the surplus when it presents itself to you and using that opportunity to convert that to bale silage. If we move on then to the fertilizer story, I suppose there is an opportunity here where clover is adequate. Clover started well in the spring. I admit that some of the clover contents were down from 24 into 25, but clover content where it's adequate, we can use that clover now as a means of fertilizer saving, fertilizer allowances on in terms of nitrogen, and I suppose less so on phosphorus, but are tight on many farms. So clover provides the opportunity to take nitrogen from a natural source and use it to grow grass. And look, swards with a good clover content, 25-30% now at this stage, can use this as a means of growing the grass on the farm. And I suppose after grazing, an application of something like the collecting yard tank at about 2,000 gallons to the acre will supply a level of nitrogen, but also supply P, K, which helps the clover develop as well. And it's using that material in the collecting yard to make the nitrogen saving along with the clover. If we move on then, I suppose, to where we are with fertilizer and studies done recently by Anya Murray, and we put them in the newsletter this week, comparing CAN with protected urea. And in the last 3 rotations on 3 different sites across the country, Anya's presented the results in this and in the newsletter, but basically shows there was no difference in the level of grass production across the 3 sites by either using protected urea or CAN. Speaking of which, Denis, our feature farmer, he's spreading 20 units of 38.007 plus sulfur, which is a protected urea type product. And the weather that has happened in recent times, means that we'll get a good response to those fertilizers, which we need to do given the level of allowances being on the tighter side. I suppose the last area that for this podcast today is the reseeds. There is a fair degree of progress in reseeds now in the last week or two with the rain after coming. However, there has been secondary germination and there's a level of variability in establishment, and that's still very evident on many farms. So many reseeds will need to be grazed first to help the establishment level improve. We need those secondary plants of clover and grass. And I suppose grazing would be the more obvious thing to do to try and get that establishment to level off, and the herbicide application happen after grazing for many farms, not for all, but for many. So that's our story this week from the Grass10 podcast. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website, and the link to newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. I would like to just acknowledge our sponsors of the Grass10 campaign: AIB, Grassland Agro, Department of Agriculture, FBD, and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I'll talk to you all next week.